Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Stories of Souls Outside, where we're going to interview Bettina Marie Jones, who's a life coach, and she's going to then share with us some of how we can be living our own ideal days, all around this theme of waking up from autopilot. Stay tuned. Welcome to Souls Outside, where we're all about finding the trail to stay true to your path. We do this by inviting featured guests on every show to share with you how you can follow in their soul prints, so you can choose which trail maps you need to continue on your journey. My name is Shannon Pohl, and I'm loving having navigated my own pivot from engineering to now being a master results coach and hypnotherapist, plus a forest guide who loves getting outside so we can learn from the nature, foster stewardship, and really amplify our successes by being outside in nature. I'm so excited to have you join today's episode. Welcome to Souls Outside. All right, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Stories of Souls Outside. As part of our season 2 of Hardcore Brain Power, today we're going to be exploring waking up from autopilot with our guest, Bettina Marie Jones. Without giving her story away, she's definitely one of those humans that's done a really cool transition and pivot because it was the right thing to do and what she needed to do. There was no big crisis. There was no big, huge, hairy, monstrous thing that happened. It just one day things didn't sit right anymore. And I think that's something that it's so easy for us to get in, be a train. In the previous season, we talked about this metaphor a little bit, but like we're on this train, on these tracks, and a train can only go on the track. They can, go onto a siding sometimes. They can stop in different towns. They can explore different places. And at the end of the day, they need train tracks to run. And I think as humans, it's so easy for us to get on tracks and be like, sweet, I'm solid, I've got, stable footing, I know what I'm doing, and I can go. However, what happens when you see a really cool lake that you're like, oh, it'd be kind of cool to paddle that lake, or, a trail leading off into the woods, like, ooh, maybe I would like to go and sit under a tree for a while, or, explore beyond the train station in a city. We need to get off the tracks in those cases. We need to get off of autopilot, go into manual drive in that plane. And it's the waking up from this autopilot place that can quite literally feel like we're waking up in the beginning of the day. Like you're coming out of sleep, stretching your eyes, you're like, oh, like it's sunny out, it's cloudy out. My body feels amazing. Oh, that dream I just had was really cool. There's this whole process of like new discovery. And it's about, if we can actually embrace that, which is a little bit of the exercise that Bettina is going to go through with us, my goodness, towards the end. That like, how can we get in touch with that discovery place so that we want to wake up? Because I think that's the difference, is that a lot of us, and I've been there myself, you're in this place, you're on this train, it's going just fine. However, you start getting these ideas of like, what if I did something else? And where do we find that inner power, that inner energy, that inner strength to go for that something else? Which is what that exercise that Bettina will take us through at the end of today's episode. It's going to start opening up for us. So stay tuned. We have a lovely human coming up to share with us her story. And like I said, we're going to learn about an ideal day at the end, all about how we can all wake up from our autopilot. All right, so welcome back, everyone. So excited to have Bettina Marie Jones with us today, who is a life coach. And I'm so excited, as we've mentioned, today's theme is all about waking up from autopilot. And I can't wait for Bettina to share her story of her pivot and how she woke up from autopilot. But first, I will let her introduce herself a little bit so we can get to know her. So Bettina, welcome, and introduce yourself to all of our people.
Hi, everybody. Well, thank you, Shannon, for having me on your podcast. My name's Bettina Marie Jones, and I'm a life coach. I'm based in Seattle, Washington. I know that you've probably met or encountered many life coaches. I consider myself a wayfinder. I live an intuitive-led life, meaning that I tune into my intuition on a daily basis, if not hourly sometimes, to see or make my own decisions. Now, some people get very strong gut reactions. I would say that's your intuition. And I am learning on unfolding and developing ways for me to tune in every moment that I can, especially when I need to make decisions or adjust my life in some direction or way. So,
Nice.
Yeah, that's me.
Excellent. And little FYI for everyone listening and watching, in the next section, we're going to hear from you about exploring if you're living your ideal day or not, which I know is one of those intuitive-led exercises, which I'm super excited for you to share with everyone. And I believe that's also how you ended up making your biggest pivot, which was moving across the country. Can you share with us about that?
Absolutely. So I'm originally born and raised in Connecticut, and I had this wonderful job for 10 years in New York City. I loved it. I love New York City. I love the energy, the people. However, I came home one day and I was renting this beautiful little house with a front yard, backyard, loved it, loved my neighborhood. And I sat down on the living room one evening and just had this feeling, that this quiet whisper that something was missing in my life. And I heard it. I didn't know what was missing. So I was like, shh, be quiet. Kind of push that off to the side.
Don't we always do that? You're not loud enough yet. Shh.
It's like, and nothing dramatic happened, but like I was aware of it, and I mentioned it to a friend, and like, oh, don't worry about it. Like, consciousness doesn't care whether you're happy or not. And I was like, that didn't feel good to me.
Yeah.
But it started to become louder and louder as, like, I'll say months went by, like, something was missing from my life. And I honestly did not know what it was, because I had friends. I have a wonderful family, my sister and nieces and nephews and brother-in-law and brother. I loved my job. I was fine. I was like actually making more money than I was ever making in my life. So there was no issues. I was traveling. I went to Paris. I went to London, you name it. So I was living my life. But it was persistent, and I decided to go on a vacation. I was like, well, maybe I want to move in a couple of years. I was like, maybe it's the move, because sometimes we get tired of where we're living. And I traveled to Seattle, and my idea was that I would go to Seattle and Denver and check them out, and then move in maybe 2 or 3 years. But I went to Seattle and I liked it enough. I said, I think I'm going to move in 6 months. So I started to, and it's not, I don't know anybody at the time. I didn't know anybody in Seattle. So I couldn't say, yeah, I'm my great friend Jenny, and we're going to hang out and like travel and do all these things. It was more like, I'm going to try something new. It was completely scary, but I also felt a lot of momentum of like, I could do this. And things started to fall into place to make it happen without a lot of stress. And along the way of preparing, I was selling things from my house. And a lot of people would walk up to me, like if they were coming to sell things, and I would tell them my story that I'm moving across the country. They said, I wish I had done that, or I wish I had the courage to make changes, 10 years ago, but now I'm stuck in my life. And it might have been somebody in 60, or somebody who had children and going through college, which I can't say I 100% agree with, but everybody makes their own decision. So it was really interesting for people to say, you're doing this for me because I never made a change like this. So that was how, and it completely changed my life too. And it's been a journey, and it continues to unfold.
Very cool. So beyond the fact that it's just cool you moved across the country, I think one of the things that I love about your experience is it highlights like everything was good. There was no big, crazy, hairy monster thing that happened. It was just, yeah, everything is good. And for me, something's missing, and I needed something new and different, which I think is so important for people to hear, because I think that happens more often than we think. Is that, yeah, people, like you were saying, they feel stuck in their lives, or like everything's good, so why bother changing anything?
Right. And they haven't experienced a crisis like a divorce or a breakup, or a loss of job or something like that. Like, because sometimes that too, I feel like the universe sometimes pushes people out of their comfort zone. And fortunate for me, nothing like that happened.
Yeah.
Because it could also make people stay in their trenches as well and not leave their comfort zone. So
Very
yeah.
much so. Awesome. So, in terms of like the missing piece, like what was it about Seattle that filled the missing pieces for you?
Um, you know, it's really interesting because, as I mentioned, I didn't have any friends or family here, although I found out I do have family members here. They're just like, we're not close. And I have a couple of cousins that live a couple of cities away or a couple of towns away. We just haven't had a chance to connect. But for me, like, because I was so involved with my job, I wasn't paying attention to my intuition. And something, without knowing anybody here, what I did was I started seeking out communities. I started seeking out people like to go to dinner with and movies. And a couple of groups that I found were to help individuals develop their intuition. And so I started going to those and found a couple of beautiful communities. One's called Wisdom Soup, where people just get together and hear about like sound healing. I haven't ever gone to like a sound healing ceremony before. And so it was all these things that were just like, oh, I love this. And it was like, and that's what I found has been my missing piece. And since moving here, it's been about 4 years, actually in June, I have been going to as many intuition development things that really helped me. Now I could really hone in on asking like simple, easy yes or no questions like, should I go this way to the store or this way? And you never know, but I just listen to like test my intuition and see what it tells me. So that was my missing piece. Like I needed to get back in touch with that feminine aspect of myself. You know, as human beings, we are masculine and feminine. You know, those are just two energies that help us fulfill our bodies and how we live our lives. But I had moved away from that, and I wasn't aware of it. And I'm so happy that I transitioned more into an intuitive led life, because it helped me also start questioning, well, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? And that's how I found out I want to be a life coach, you know, and it led me on a whole path of leaving corporate America and taking training for a year and starting my own business. And if you asked me 5 years ago if I'd ever be an entrepreneur or a business owner, I would have been, no, I love corporate America. I like my paychecks, my insurance, my vacation time. And this is something just different and more for me, for my life.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think this is fascinating. Like you make this change that I'm sure to people they were like, what the hell are you doing moving across the country? And you're like, no, it's in alignment with me and where I need to go and explore. And obviously you had the resources to be able to move from the job and like have that, which is awesome. And just be able to say like, no, I need to do this for me and get back to also love the feminine energy piece. I think that's so important for a lot of women in
It is.
the world these days. There's a lot of,
and I had a lot of friends who were like, you're not going to move. I was like, yes, I am. Like, I just signed a lease. I'm moving. And they really couldn't believe it. Nor could my job was very supportive. I have to say I was fortunate with that, where they allowed me to stay in my role for an additional 6 months. Like it was going to end over the summer because I had 9 years. They said, stay until you find another job. And I knew it was important to find a full-time job here in Seattle so I could fully transition, because it was lonely as well. I will say that was like the hardest thing for the first, I'll say 6 months to a year, even though I was going out and meeting people. When you transition to a new city, a lot of people already have established lives, and it's hard to break into those circles. So it took a little while. But out of that, I got 2 dogs, so I have no complaints. And that was another community I was able to build. Like I adopted a dog, and I was like, I'd love to volunteer for an organization. And so that became one of my communities that made my life a little fuller and eased my transition. So
Beautiful.
yeah.
Now, especially speaking of dogs and knowing the location of Seattle over on the Northwest Coast, how has, I can only assume, being out in that nature with the dogs or just on your own has been part of your transition as well?
Yes. When I had one dog, one, I have to say, Seattle is gorgeous. Like we have mountains, we have some lakes, we have the harbor, things like that. But like the green trees here are like phenomenal. Like I have a short walk that I do. It's like a quarter mile. Like when I know I need to go into nature, and it's like walking it through like a magic fairy garden. I did an experiment when I had my first dog. Like we were going to a park every night after work just to explore it, and we'd go for like a 30 minute to an hour walk, and it was just like our way to bond, and we always discovered something new. Like, and it was just paths going through trees. And there are some parks here in Seattle where you wouldn't know that you're in Seattle I consider a large town, even though it's a city compared to New York. But there are places here that you don't know that you're in a metropolitan area.
Nice.
And it's fantastic. The air here, I have to say, is really crisp. The summers are fantastic. You could go for a walk at 9 o'clock in the summertime and still have some daylight because of where we're positioned.
Oh, nice.
I have to say, one of the biggest thrills when I first moved here too was driving down a road and seeing like a snow-capped mountain in the distance. I had to pull over and take like and send them to my friends back in New York. Like, this is my view right now. You know, it was just awe-inspiring, which I think nature does for us when we connect to it. So.
Awesome. Well, on that awe-inspiring note, thank you for joining us and sharing a little bit about who you are, and also remind everyone we're going to move into our next section shortly, where Bettina is going to share with us, we're going to explore if we're living our ideal days and how we can really bring that philosophy forward so we can have our own awe-inspiring moments and live from our heart-centered place.
Great.
All right, welcome back, everyone. So today we still have with us Bettina Marie Jones, who's a life coach. And in sticking with today's theme of waking up from autopilot, now she's going to share with us an ideal life exercise, one of those ways we can start waking ourselves up from autopilot and exploring what a more ideal life could be for us. So I'll turn it over to you, Bettina.
Great. Yeah, I have to say I love this exercise because it can help an individual figure out or feel like, or move into what's possible versus what is. And I will use myself as an example. I was working with a life coach, and they hinted at like, I think you'd be a really good life coach. And I was like, no, I can't. That's not meant for me. Like, I came up against my hard line of comfort zone. And this is when I was living in Seattle. And so he just said, I'm going to give you a little homework. Can you think about your ideal day, or consider concepts of having an ideal day if you were a life coach? I want you to talk to people who are in the field. I want you to ask them what their day is about so that you can start to build this vision for yourself without making a decision to make changes or not. And that's what this exercise is. So like, what is and what's possible. And it's really just asking a couple of key questions, like, if money was not an issue, if you didn't have any circumstances that were troubling you today, and you woke up tomorrow, what would your day look like? like what would your home look like? Where would you be living? Would you be living close to a beach? Would you be in a lake? Would you be in a forest? And people start to really like, I see myself driving an SUV and going to the beach in the mornings to go for a 5-mile walk with my dog. And it helps like people move into that more of like a dreaming and scheming aspect of what possibilities are versus, no, I have to be to work at 8 o'clock and I punch in, whether you punch in or not, or work from home and my manager, it just opens up that, I'm going to use this word lightly and it might turn some people off, like the magical realm of like, how can my life unfold in a way that it's not right now? And it really can transform lives. I love it. Like I said, I was like, no, I can't do that. But now I am like, and it wasn't long. Some people have to plan a little bit to make their ideal day happen. I did have to go through some training. I started to, but I also found that the support that I needed to make these changes in my life appeared. And sometimes, and I'll have to say being on this podcast is too, because now I get to like talk about myself and my business and what helps clients. And I love this because this tool is really a metaphor. It's like tapping into our dreams and making them into reality. And I think that's really essential. And I think that people lose touch with that as we start to go on with the rhythm of our lives. I had one client she realized she was in a relationship that she wasn't happy with. She's like, no, I want a partner who doesn't live in the same space with me right now. And so she had to have a conversation with her partner about like, let's separate for a little bit. Doesn't mean that they wanted to break up or anything like that, but she's like, I just want my own space. And so that started to become part of her ideal day. And it's these things, it's like giving ourselves permission to like, if we had a magic wand and we could change anything that we want to move into, this is a way to do it through just thinking, writing down a couple of things, and being in conversation with a life coach.
Right.
So, but I think that is the biggest thing, moving from what's possible versus what is.
Which is so, I feel like it's a gift that we can give ourselves by moving into that space and really giving our brain that space to be like, for a second, let's suspend reality, the reality we believe in, and see what is possible. What can I imagine? I love them waving the magic wand analogy. Like, if you could be Harry Potter or the Sorcerer's Apprentice or any of those magical beings, you just and wave your magic wand. What would be there? What would be possible in that space? And then our brains can actually catch up. Be like, okay, well, if that's what could be possible, how can we make that happen?
Exactly. And going back to Harry Potter, like the Sorting Hat asked him, what house do you want to be in? Like it was going to put him in Slytherin, but he's like, no, I want to be in
Gryffindor.
Oh my God, Gryffindor. I was like, Dumbledore.
The other one.
So like, but he's like, yeah, that's what he was dreaming about. And I'll have to say for myself, when I ask, what is my ideal day? And this is something that you could you could go through this metaphor so many times, because like right now I'm in Seattle, I love it, but I know I don't want to be here forever. So like my ideal day, I would love to have clients like in the morning, have time to like connect with myself. And when I say time, I mean like a good 2 hours. I would like to do yoga. I like to do meditation. I like to walk. I like to be near the ocean. So that's telling me now that like my ideal day, I'm going to need to move. Seattle, we have a harbor and things like that, but I am an ocean person. I want to hear the waves. I like to walk in the ocean. And so I know that I'll have to be moving again in a year or so to staying on the West Coast to an ocean town. Like I need that. Like that would be part of my ideal day, like to even smell the ocean, and people, and so what I love about this tool, like Ideal Day, it's really just asking yourself a couple of questions. What would my life look like? Or what would I like to, if I wake up tomorrow, what would I like to experience in the morning? What would I like to experience in the afternoon? What will my evenings look like? Who's with me? Do I have cats and dogs? Do I have people around? Am I volunteering my time to be with those? If I don't want to have children, like maybe there's a, like it helps like open up the mind to like a bigger vision of like, and you don't have to move towards it. Just like these are the possibilities of our lives to live more fulfilling lives, more enjoyable lives, have more joy in our life, connect with nature, connect with friends and family, or create communities. So I truly love this tool and this exercise, especially because I think as I said before, when we move forward in our lives, we forget about the dreams and the schemes that we had maybe, I don't want to say when we were children, but maybe when we were a little freer in our thinking, we didn't have economic constraints and things of those nature that, I worked with too many people who said, I got to stay in this job because my kid's in college, and as soon as they're done, then I can live my life. I don't believe that's necessarily true. People make a decision that that's how they're going to be. But there's more waiting for us, and I truly believe that for everyone.
Oh, I agree. I agree that there's more waiting for you, for sure. And I think this is such a beautiful tool that everyone can easily start for themselves. Just how do you want to experience things and the different parts of our day and how that flows. And I know, obviously you are a life coach, and you've offered that any of our listeners and watchers, if they want to reach out to you for 30 minutes with a life coach, complimentary chat. If people are like, I don't know about my ideal day, that's a great first question to ask, is how to really expand into those possibilities. And just ask what is possible and how can you make those possibilities a reality and really action towards those.
Yeah, and I truly believe that we all have dreams, whether we know it or not. Like, we have like secret dreams inside ourselves. And this is just a way, like using this exercise and just having a brief conversation, like can help like just open that door a little bit for someone to take the first step out. So that's why I'd like to offer that and love to connect with people. And that would be like easy peasy.
Lemon squeezy. Finish it up.
I love that.
Amazing. Well, Bettina, thank you so much for coming on Souls Outside. It was a joy having you. Everyone listening and watching, take her up on her 30 minutes. Figure out that ideal day and how to action towards it.
Yes. And I'll send you my email and my website so people could connect and find me there. And thank you, Shannon.
Which will all be included in the show notes. For sure. So thank you. And everyone have wonderful rest of your days. Thank you for joining us today on Souls Outside, and we hope you enjoyed walking in our featured guest soul prints as much as we did. As always, we like to wrap up each episode with our extreme gratitude and appreciation for our founding sponsors, who quite literally made it possible for Souls Outside to become a reality. First off, special thanks goes to Etche Savas and her company Palindrome Design for the amazing cover art, and noting that their sponsorship comes in support of their passion project, Self Build Sustainable. We'd also like to thank Chuck Henry for his amazing music, original music, that is featured throughout the episode. And of course, Elise Cannon, our amazing editor, who quite literally made it possible for any of these episodes to see the light of day. They probably would still be on a hard drive on my computer without her expertise, skill, and passion for editing. So we thank them so much. And until next time, we hope you enjoy your journey and continue following in the soul prints of those who have gone before. Hey, one last thing before you go. If you wish you could talk about this episode with myself, our featured guest, or other like-minded individuals like yourself, join us on Facebook or LinkedIn in our Souls Outside Facebook and LinkedIn groups. On Facebook, we do watch parties. On both, we have awesome conversations about what we talked about and are able to answer your questions on how you can go even further on your soul print journey. See you there.